I love making records. I love the concept of putting the record together, the artwork, the sound, composing the music to arranging it, choosing the musicians, mixing to the mastering, the record cover, the sleeve. I just love that whole process. If somebody asked me, what do you do for a living? I would probably say I make records. Because even though I'm known as a drummer, I also spend probably more time making records. My father was a band leader. He used to rehearse the band at the house. Really, when I was three and a half years old, that's when I saw the drummer, and that was it. I was just struck by it. So I started playing drums. My mom was a kind of an amateur archivist in terms of recording all my dad's material. And that was the machine I learned to use when I was about 4 years old. My father would then start taking me to broadcasts at the BBC, but I would just sit there behind the drummer. So I got very used to the environment of a recording studio. I learned literally by doing it. So when I say to people I joined my dad's band at 12, this was one of England's top bands at that time. I did my first gig in September of 1969, and I was the drummer of the band. My dad passed away very suddenly at 65, and I was 16, and I had a band to run. And the last thing I wanted to do was run a Dixieland band. So I said, that's it, fold the band. You know, some of the band members were not very happy about that, but I'm a purist. I just couldn't have it any other way. So 1973, I joined Jesus Christ Superstar, and that was it. Half the cast wanted to make records and demos, and that's how it starts. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting called to do another session, and then it does this. And that's how it was in those days. I was the youngest session musician in London at the time. Boy, I was 17 when I played on Robert Palmer's first album, Sneaking Sally Through the Alley. I was 18 when I played on Murray Head's album, and a whole bunch. What was fascinating to me was how different everything sounded. Same drum kit tuning, but a different studio and a different engineer. That fascinated me. And that's when I started to really have my favorite engineers. The 80s was my first time that I started producing. It's just the experience of working with all these great musicians, great artists, great engineers, great producers. I've just stolen from everybody. Frankly, I've stolen from everybody. It's all here. It's how you hear it, and then how you make it so it sounded like the way you want to hear it. Tailoring the sound for the music. That's really what it is. That's the palette that you choose to paint the picture with, make the record with. Ever since I was introduced to SPL, I was really taken, and especially the transient designer. That to me is wow. I don't travel anywhere without a transient designer. It's the key to my drum sound. It's primarily for ambience. Room sounds are very important to me. And there's a lot of rooms that don't sound very good, and they need help. And with a transient designer, that's the easiest thing to do. No compressor. I've tried it with many compressors, and it doesn't do the same thing. It's okay, not great. But the transient designer, that was it. And to me, that's the most impressive piece of studio gear I've seen in a long time. For mixing, I use the SPL MixDream. Well, first of all, it gives me a way of coming out of Pro Tools. It gives me a way of bussing and having a little control over the overall level, which is great. But I also like to use an outboard compressor and outboard EQ. I just prefer it. It's also really easy if I want to mute the backing vocals, the lead vocals, the keys and the guitars. I can do it at an arm's length, sitting here, instead of messing around with a mouse. I love the way it sounds. I tried quite a few different ones, by the way, before I decided on the MixDream. I want to hear the music as just one. It's kind of a console in one as well. To me, very, very important part of this whole chain. That doesn't change. That will always stay then. The iron, that is a pretty amazing compressor. I change a lot. I go to one setup for a while, and then I get bored of that sound, and I want it to sound different. I would call it kind of an old-fashioned sound. I've mixed many records using that as the master compressor, but I also use it to track. I use that for vocals. It's a great vocal compressor. Very easy to use. I've used it for bass too. The nice thing about it is it's very smooth. Of course, what I love about it is everything is indented. The most important thing is that they've earned a place in these racks, because I don't want anything in these racks that are not doing anything really good.